How you doing? I hope you guys had a beautiful Shabbat. I want to talk to you guys about something very important, something very near and dear to my heart. And I want to draw on this past week's Parsha, because it's a very powerful Parsha. It's called Maseh, Journeys. There's a big question amongst the commentators of the Torah, why the Torah is going to explain 42 journeys. The Torah doesn't waste one word, not one letter. When a mitzvah comes up twice, they have to mean that it explains something different. And they go to every length to explain that every single thing means something. Not a letter, not a word. How do we know? Because in the Torah, if there's a letter scratched out, a letter missing, anything wrong at all, the entire Torah is pasul. So everything counts. This entire parsha in the beginning is detailing one journey after another journey after another journey, not saying anything about them. He went to this place, he went to this place, he went to this place. Why is there a whole Torah portion dealing with journeys? So I want to tell you something very important. Thank you. The Ramban, one of the most famous commentators in the Torah, he says it's to show you that despite 40 years of struggle, of difficulty, of confusion, of wandering in the desert, Hashem did not leave them the entire time. He was with them in every journey. How do we know that? Because it says that Moshe wrote it down al pi Hashem. So what does one of the commentators explain al pi Hashem means? It looks like it means that Moshe wrote it down because Hashem told him to. But this commentator explains, no, that the journey was al pi Hashem. Every one of the 42 journeys of the Jews in the desert was exactly what Hashem wanted. He was there the whole time. Whenever the Torah talks about the peh, the mouth, the Ramban explains that this is the Torah's way of explaining to you that when someone wants something to happen, it's through the mouth. That Hashem says and it was. Hashem says and it was. Why didn't He just think and it was? Why didn't He hear and it was? So the Ramban says that whenever it says that Hashem says, it's the Torah's way of explaining that when Hashem wants to bring something into reality, He says it. So these 42 journeys of the Jews were al pi Hashem, based on what Hashem wanted to happen. 42. He didn't leave them for one journey. And this is the reason why the Torah is going and listening. He went from Ramses to Sukkot. He went from Sukkot to here. He went from here to here 42 times. Why is the Torah talking about all of this? How many times in your life did you feel that Hashem was not with you? How many times in your life did you feel like you were on a journey and you were alone? Here comes the Torah to teach you there is not one journey in your life that you're alone. Chassidut, says a very deep secret. Everything that happens in the Torah didn't just happen in the past. It is a recurring reality. Whatever happened to the Jewish people in the desert happens to every single Jew in their lifetime. So what does Chassidut explain? Every single Jewish man and woman in their life goes through 42 journeys. Never less, never more. And even when it looks like there's more or less, it's really only 42. And the wandering in the desert that we feel that we're doing, going around in circles, hitting the same bumps in the road, same frustrations, same losses, same confusions, same disappointments. But every single one of these journeys is al pi Hashem. He didn't give you 41 and then went to go watch the Super Bowl. He didn't miss one of the journeys. He was the cause of every single journey. Where are we going to? Okay, it's great. Our life is corresponding to the Jewish people in the desert. But what was the point of all the journeying? Rabbi Nachman says, when you don't know where you're going, you're in exile. When you don't know the purpose of the journeys, you're in what's called galut. What does galut mean? I don't know what's going on in my life. I don't understand what's happening in my life. Everything seems pointless, according to nature, a coincidence, and it's painful, and I don't know why. Where were they going? Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. The Gemara in Brachot says there are 3 things in the world which can only be acquired through suffering. And these are the 3 greatest things that have ever existed. One of them is Eretz Yisrael. One of the others is Olam Haba. The world that there's only good that is forever. It must be that there is a very direct relationship between the land of Israel and the world to come. Comes Rabbi Nachman to teach one of the most powerful things that you will ever hear. The land of Israel is a state of Emunah Shlema. A state of complete Emunah. It is a land. Whenever the Torah speaks about a land, it's talking about a mindset, a consciousness. There is a mindset called Egypt, Mitzrayim. Rabbi Nachman says that's the world of coincidence, happenstance, nature. The land of Israel is the mindset that I have a God. That the Gemara says that if you don't live in the land of Israel, it's like you don't have a God. If you live in the land, it's like you have a God. But I don't understand. There's so many Jews who live outside of the land. There's even many rabbis who suggest you shouldn't go until Mashiach comes. How could it be that the Gemara explicitly says, for any Jew who lives outside of the land of Israel, it's like you don't have a God, so tell us all to go? And the deep reason, the deep answer is that the land of Israel is a state of mind. A state that's called Emunah. When you live in that mindset, when you live in that place, it's like you have a God. When you live outside of the land, it's like you don't have a God. Do you know why? Everybody had a Sunday today. Some of you had a good Sunday. Some of you had a bad Sunday. By the way, where does the name Sunday come from? Good. Very good. By the way, it's scary to me. I've asked you guys a million questions that were so important, and you never had an answer. But I asked you where Sunday comes from, you all knew. That's very frightening. But it's true. It comes from the sun. It came from non-Jewish calendar. Monday comes from the moon. What is Sunday? Sun is always the same. Every day the sun comes, the sun goes. The sun comes, the sun goes. But when does our calendar go according to? The moon. Why? Because the Torah is teaching you something very deep. There is no such thing as things are just happening. There's no such thing as the sun comes and the sun goes. There is only such a thing as Hashem decided today to bring the sun, and tomorrow He doesn't have to. But He's been doing it for thousands of years. He made an active, conscious decision to do so. When you think the sun is going to come up tomorrow, because it has to, you're living outside of the land of Israel. But when you understand that nothing has to be, You don't have to exist. You don't have to be sitting on a chair right now. We don't have to have air conditioning. You don't have to spend time with your family having shishlich. Am I saying it right? And ashpalov and bachsh. I'm probably not saying all these things right. I'm so sorry. I'm not racist. I'm just trying to, yeah. I love all these foods, by the way. I really do. I really think Bukharians are some of the best food I ever had. Sorry, when you grow up eating gefilte fish, it's a huge upgrade. It's hard to even possibly explain to you guys. Even that is like being in the land of Israel, that you go over Bukharian's home and you just have some delicious, whatever they're making, it's all good. Meat on a stick. Okay. But when you understand nothing has to be and only is because Hashem wants it to be, that's called being in the land of Israel. The land of Emunah. What are these 42 journeys for? They're to take you to the land. People always say, I don't understand, why is Hashem doing this to me? I'm trying the best that I can. Right? No, I'm not the greatest person in the world. No, I'm not the nicest person. No, I'm not the funniest person. No, I don't go to every Torah lesson I can go to. No, I'm not always praying like I should. Yes, I'm still doing almost everything it says not to do in the Torah. But I'm trying. Why doesn't Hashem have any compassion for me? Why aren't you helping me? The answer is He is. Emunah. Because everyone here is trying to get to a certain place, a physical place. Marriage, children, jangi, money, babki, whatever this is, bubkis, okay? And you have beautiful homes, drinks, clubs, whatever you're into. What's the issue? There is no greater good than the land of Israel. Hashem created the entire world so that you can live in the land. And you're asking Hashem all the time, help me, bring me to the good. I want to see the good. And we think He's not. We think He forgets about us. We think He's not listening to us. We think He may not even exist. And He's answering every one of your prayers, except He's not taking you to the place that you think that you want to go to. He's taking you to the place that you really want to go to. It's called Eretz Yisrael. It's called Emunah. You tell me, what is a better place to be in? The air conditioning, chas v'shalom, stops working here. I don't stop talking about Emunah the entire class. You're like, is David ever going to speak about anything else? I want to hear anything else. There's so many topics. David does not stop talking about Emunah. And he wears a funny hat, and he hasn't gotten a haircut recently, and you can go on and on and on about all the disappointments. Or you can know that everything is al pi Hashem. Everything is exactly how Hashem wants it to be. The AC's on, it's because Hashem wants it to be on. The AC's off, it's because He wants it to be off. You had a bad hair day, Hashem didn't want you to look so good today. You tripped and you fell, Hashem wanted to. Or you can live outside of the land. What does that look like? Oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. How did I do that? I went here. How did I do that? Why am I doing this? What happened to me? How did my life spiral out of control? How did I get here? Why am I in this class? I could have been having shishlich. Rav Shalom Arush says, it's based on Chazal, that Gehenna and Gan Eden, the place of ecstatic pleasure. Many people don't know this. What does Eden mean? Eden means ecstasy. Not the drug that you guys have. Oh, I'm not going to say anything. Ecstasy that's natural. Ecstasy that's spiritual. Ecstasy that's not dependent on something going a certain way. You're just in a state of ecstasy. That's called Eden. It comes from the word intense pleasure. What's the Garden of Eden? It's that state of reality, that you're always in that state of inner ecstasy. What's right next to it? Gehinnom. I just had a chiddush. I hope it's true. The word Gehinnom is two words, Ge and Hinnom. Ge in the Torah means a hill. Hinnom means it just happened. If you want a free gift, it's Hinnom, right? Just happens. Gratis. What's the difference between Gan Eden and Gehinnom? One of these you think just happens. This just happened to me. Or Hashem made this happen. Rav Shalom Arush says, why are they right next to each other? Because there's only one thing that's standing in the way of these two places, and they're complete different experiences in your life. Emunah. A person who has Emunah, he's in Gan Eden, no matter what's going on in his life. A person who doesn't have Emunah, he doesn't have to wait for the next world. He experiences Gehenna right now. How do I know? Because I lived it. I was living in hell. And Rav Nachman was the first person to console me, not even by telling me it's going to get better, but by telling me that hell is not just for next. Hell is right now. What, you don't think your depression is hell? You don't think your drug addiction is hell? You don't think your low self-esteem is hell? You don't think your lack of being able to support your family is hell? You don't think the fact that you never fit in anywhere is hell? It's all hell. It's right now. How do I get to Gan Eden? How do I get to the garden of intense pleasure? Emunah. The land of Israel is the mindset of Emunah. And you need to go through 42 very difficult journeys to get there. Comes the Ramban to tell you, but know that Hashem is with you in every single one of those journeys. And every journey is Al Pi Hashem. Every journey is Al Pi Hashem. What's the beginning of you experiencing joy even through the journey? To know that you're going to the land of Israel. If you don't realize that Hashem is taking you to the land of Israel, to the place of Emunah, you will suffer tremendously in your life. But if you simply realize that everything in your life is bringing you to the land, is bringing you to Emunah, which is the ultimate good. David, what are you talking about? You tell me what's better. If I had a lot of money or I had no money, you're going to say a lot of money is better. You can't say otherwise. But I'll tell you something. It's much better to feel like you have a lot of money always, regardless if you have a lot or you don't. Because you know why? Then you're free. Can you imagine you lived your whole life to make a lot of money because you think that's going to make you happy? What if you could just be happy? You're living your whole life so that you can go make somebody else happy, so that you can go make somebody else feel that you are a certain way, just trying to prove it over and over and over and over and over again. Your parents, your friends, your sisters, your brothers, your society. Why? Because you think it's going to make you happy. What if you could just be happy? I don't know. When I went to Eretz Yisrael and I met my wife and they lived in a little tiny apartment and they're living from month to month, and they barely have money to do anything. And they're the happiest people I ever met, by far. I never met happier people than my wife's family. But I don't understand, everybody in America is trying to have a certain job and certain to get certain money. I thought you need that to be happy. And they're by far the happiest people I've ever met. What's the reason? Emunah. They believe everything's from Hashem. Everything. You think Hashem made it in your life that you need a certain something to be happy, and if no other way Hashem does waiting for you to be happy, doesn't want you to be happy? Does that make sense? The key is to know where you're going. You're going to Emunah. You're going to the land of Israel. Just by knowing that, you feel better. Rabbi Nachman says every time you get up in the morning, you should think about Olam Haba. Olam Haba? Why am I thinking about Olam Haba when I got up? Because if you forget that this world is a means to an end, then you forget the purpose of your life. And if you forget the purpose of your life, you immediately become sad, confused, angry, scared. But just by knowing the purpose, you're excited. What happens when a person goes to the gym? He's lifting weights, he has his headphones on, he has his pre-workout. If he's Oreo, he's taking steroids. You guys can tell by the guns over there. I'm just kidding. And he's pumped to go to the gym. Why? He's ripping his muscle fibers. He's literally tearing his muscles. If you did it by accident, you would go to see an orthopedic surgeon. This guy's doing it for fun. Because he knows it's going to bring him to a greater good. That he's excited to do it. He's pumped to do it. He's looking in the mirror. Why? Because he knows that this is a means to an end. But what would happen if I told you, hey, you want to go to the banya? You want to come with me to the banya? We're going to sweat everything out. It's going to be great. We're going to hang out. We're going to have meat sticks and whatever else you guys are doing over there. You know, you don't do that over there? Okay. It's going to be great. And what happens? You go in the banya and all of a sudden everybody's working out. It's like, here you go, here's a weight. And you start like, oh my gosh, this hurts. This isn't fun. What are you talking about? This is great. All of a sudden he puts a heavier weight on you. Oh my gosh, I think I'm dying. And then he tells you, oh, I'm so sorry, it's not a banya, it's a gym. It's just called banya, that's the name of the gym. What's the difference? The whole difference is one person knows why he's there, the other person doesn't know why he's there. By not knowing why you're there, you suffer the worst suffering. As long as you know why you're there, you can be pumped, you can be excited, you can look forward to every moment with life force, with joy. It says a tzaddik lives be'emunah, with his emunah. So what do we usually learn that as? A tzaddik has emunah. Rabbi Nachman says, pay attention to lives. He lives through his emunah. Where does his life force come from? It comes from emunah. Without the emunah, he has no life force. The tzaddik doesn't have difficulties, he doesn't fall, he doesn't have issues. He has issues every day of his life. But he lives be'emunah. He experiences it with joy, with happiness, with peace, with life force. Not because he has a certain amount of money, not because he looks a certain way, not because he accomplished a certain thing, but because of one reason only. He lives in the land of Israel every moment of his life. That it's like he has a God. There's a pasuk later on in the Parsha. By the way, you should know whenever you look at the whole Torah now, the whole reason is to get us to the land. The entire Torah is getting the Jews to the land of Israel. If you understand that now, you're going to understand everything that takes place in the Torah. It's all to bring the Jewish people to the place of Emunah. How do we even know that? There's an explicit midrash on Shir HaShirim, the deepest text in all of Tanakh. It says that on the mountain of Emunah, the Jewish people are going to sing. What's the mountain of Emunah? Rashi says explicitly that when Mashiach comes, he's going to bring us first, all the Jewish people, to the land of Israel, to a mountain called Emunah. And he's going to show us that the reason we're here and what we're experiencing, it comes only from Emunah. The reason we got to the end of the exile and we saw the redemption is because of Emunah. And not just that, the land you're looking at is Emunah. Now we know that there's 7 nations in the land of Israel. According to Chassidut, they explain that this is keneged the 7 attributes of your soul. Your love, your fear, your truth, your confidence, your gratitude, your faithfulness, your simple faith. These 7 Canaanite nations are representing the barriers to you experiencing Emunah. And for the Jews to be in the land, we had to expel every single one of the nations. There could not be one left, or we could not inhabit the land. Why? Because to have Emunah, you need to break every barrier. You need to burst through every difficulty. You need to overcome and be resilient in the face of every challenge. And what does the Pasuk say? That if you leave one of them there, if you leave one of those nations there, if you don't rectify one part of yourself, it is going to gouge out your eyes, the Pasuk says. So that sounds very scary. But the Ramban says it's talking about your spiritual eyes. That you're not going to be able to see reality if you leave the Canaanite nations there. If you do not break through and overcome every obstacle in your life, that obstacle itself is going to gouge your spiritual eye. And it's going to make you blind. Blind to what? That Hashem is all that there is. It's only Hashem. It's only ever been Hashem. It's only ever going to be Hashem. That mind's eye will be gouged out if we do not kick all of those nations out first. And only then we can settle the land. I want to teach you something inside in the Likutei Moharan. Usually I don't do this in the class. This is one of the most important pieces of the Torah that ever was. Never has it been more important than in our generation. They made a song out of this. But I want you guys to hear it inside. Because we all need it. Ki yesh shnei hastarot. There's 2 types of concealments in life. U'kshe'Hashem yiparach nista ba'astar achat. When Hashem is hidden in one concealment, Gam ken kashem me'od lamatzo. It's very difficult to find him. Ach apal piken. Kishehu nista ba'astar achat. However, but when he's only in one concealment, efshar ligav lachator ad shimsa oto yiparach. You can toil and you can work and you can sweat until you find him in that one concealment, even though it's very hard. Since he is aware that Hashem is hidden from him. Right? In the one concealment, even though it's very difficult and even though it's very painful because you don't feel Hashem, you realize Hashem is missing. You realize something is wrong. That you don't feel good. You don't feel Hashem. However, when Hashem hides himself in a concealment within a concealment, Daenu, meaning da'astar ba'atzma nisteret mimenu, the concealment itself is concealed from him. Daenu she'enu yodea klal she'Hashem yiparach nistar mimenu. He doesn't even know that Hashem is hiding. Then it is literally impossible at all to find him. Since he's not even aware that Hashem is hidden. So what are the two concealments? One, Hashem is literally hiding from me. But at least with that, I know he's hiding, so I can run after him. But what happens when I don't even realize he's there? Then I have two concealments. He's hiding, and I don't know he even exists. I don't even know he's taking care of me. I don't even realize he loves me. And now you're in a double concealment. And Rabbi Nachman says in that place you can't even find him. This is the pasuk that speaks about the final generation before the Mashiach comes. And I am going to hide myself on that day. But the terminology is very weird. Haster, hastir. I'm going to hide, I'm going to hide. Say it once. The answer is the final concealment is a double concealment. Hashem is going to be so hidden in our generation, you're not even going to realize he exists. Let alone in past generations where you're looking for him and you just don't find him. In our generation, you don't even realize he exists. Dayenu shaster star. You don't even realize Hashem is hidden. And then, bavadai, for sure you're not going to find him. Why? Because you don't know he's hidden. And after that you know, you're going to look for him. But a person who doesn't know, he's not going to look. Because the concealment itself is concealed from him. However, in truth, even all of these concealments, even in a concealment within a concealment, Hashem is there. Because of course there is no such thing as something taking place and Hashem is not the one who's causing it to happen. Because without the life force of godliness, that thing can never take place. What's the key to living in the land of Emunah? You have to first know one thing. Hashem is there. Hashem is there. But I was raped, chas v'shalom. Hashem is there. I was abused. Hashem is there. I came from a broken home. Hashem is there. I spent 15 years in prison. Hashem is there. I've been addicted to drugs. Hashem is there. No matter what, Hashem is there. That word Hester is the root of the word Esther. It's taught in Chassidut that the final generation is connected the story of Purim. And Esther, who is the hero of the whole story, her name means Hashem is concealed from me. And in the entire story of Esther, you don't hear Hashem's name once. Bevadai gam sham. But it has to be that Hashem is there. In the beginning, in the middle, in the end. And in fact, they explain that King Achashverosh, whenever it says king, and it doesn't say Achashverosh, it's referring to Hashem in a hidden way. And you want to know even deeper than that? Rav Ginsburg says, and even when it says King Achashverosh, it's still referring to Hashem. Ein od milvado. There is nothing else besides Hashem. How do I'm going to speak to Hashem for an hour? What is there to talk about? If you know that everything in your life is Hashem, what is there not to talk about? Also Hashem. How do you peer through the concealments? How do you break through the barriers? How do you pray for that thing that you've always wanted to, but you're afraid to, because you don't want Hashem not to answer? You don't want Hashem not to hear. You don't want to be let down. I've told this story multiple times. Bezrat Hashem, I will tell this story the rest of my life. And if you heard it before, please listen again. And if you have not heard it, please listen. When I was becoming Bali Tshuva, I left behind everything. My job, my friends, my family. All alone. Why? Because of some little tiny hope somewhere that possibly maybe there could be that Hashem really exists. And He really loves me. And I'm really His son. And He really does have a plan for me. And things in my life could really work out. And I'm fighting and I'm scratching and I'm clawing to find out if what I think is true. But you can never know. And I'm struggling tremendously, struggling until one day, I see this book, Likutei Moharan. And you know in those movies, like when the halo is shining and everything is going on, it wasn't exactly like that, but it felt like that. I went over, I don't know what it was about the book. A lot of people have stories like this, by the way. Something was pulling me towards the book. I opened the book. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I felt like somebody for the first time in my life was talking to me. And not just talking, the deepest truth that ever was. That He knew my pain, that He knew my experience, that He'd been there. There is a Torah, it's called Torah Zion. It is the 7th Torah of Likutei Moharan. This Torah is, Bezrat Hashem, we'll do it together, one of the most powerful Torahs that ever was, and the foundation of this lesson that we're teaching today. Rabbi Nachman teaches there that the land of Israel is the concept of Emunah, like we're saying tonight. It's the concept of miracles above nature. The land of Mitzrayim is the place of nature. And that the land of Israel, of Emunah, is the land of tefillah, is the land of prayer. That prayer, miracles, the land of Israel are all one concept. And what does he say there? He says that if a person believes in his heart, in his soul, that Hashem will do a miracle for him, and he doesn't give up on that prayer, he doesn't move from that prayer, he pushes it and pushes it and pushes it. until he pushes through the concealments that Hashem is not really there, or that Hashem is not really listening, or that Hashem might not answer. And if he pushes it all the way, Hashem will perform an open miracle for him. And this is called being in